All right, and now, ladies and gentlemen, our next presenter served in the Ohio legislature for 2 terms. She passed the most rigid pro-life bill in the nation called Ohio's Heartbeat Bill, which saves the lives of 20,000 babies per year. Come on now. She's currently running for lieutenant governor alongside Ron Hood on a platform of no more lockdowns, no more mandatory vaccinations, and no more mask mandates. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand to your feet and greet Ohio's very own Candice Keller.
Thanks so much. Well, there's 2 things we need to know today after 2 years of tyranny under this existing administration. One is that Jesus Christ is still on the throne. And the other thing is that Donald Trump is coming back. So I'll just get comfortable just for a second. So I just want to recognize 2 people before I start real quick. One is the author, the person who wrote the Heartbeat Bill, Janet Porter, and the bill has been introduced in 15 states and at the federal level and in other nations. She just filed to run for Congress just north of here, and I want her to stand up and have her wave at you. Also, for those of you that are from Ohio, you know that yesterday the Ohio Republican Party endorsed Mike DeWine and Frank LaRose. So Frank LaRose thinks there was no voter election fraud. And so I want to recognize the other person that I love dearly today, my former colleague in the Ohio House, John Adams, who wants 3 things: paper ballots, in-person voting. What's the other one? Voter ID. Right. John Adams. Well, there's no time to wait for the sheep to wake up. It's time for the lions to get rolling. And let me tell you something about when God has a plan for your life. Lean into it, because you never know what he's going to do with you. When I was a little girl, my sister was 4 years old. She got hit by a truck and killed when she was 4. And because of that, my parents became very fearful about me. They always were afraid that I was going to also die. And so I would wake up during the night and my mother would have a mirror under my nose to make sure I was still breathing. And because of that, I grew up very fearful about a lot of things, and especially about other people and public speaking. And when I got to high school, I had a teacher who made me make speeches, and he was really good from Mansfield, but he kept making me go around the state of Ohio with my parents, and I kept making speeches, and I kept winning trophies and scholarship money. And I said, when I get out of high school, I'm never making another speech again. And so you know what? When God calls you and gives you an assignment to do not resist it, because Jonah said the same thing, and God said, you can and you will. And Moses said the same thing, and God said, you can and you will. And so now we're living during a time of Esther, and you can and you will, because we were put here for such a time as this. So when I got to the Ohio House, I looked around the elevator, because I was just a homeschool mom, you know. I never ran for office till I was 58. And I looked around the elevator, and there's a glass elevator that goes up the center of the State House. And, you know, my dad was Assemblies of God pastor. I'm Spirit-filled hillbilly. And I thought, what in the world am I doing here, Lord, that you put me here? Everybody in the elevator with me were men, and they were all lawyers, and everybody was taller than me and had a suit on. And after about a year of me serving in the legislature and seeing that they got nothing done, they all drank and cheated on their wives. Not all of them, but a lot of them did. Then I looked around the elevator and thought, what are you all doing here? 18 days into my tenure, the speaker looked over at me after 9 years of fighting for the Heartbeat Bill, and I knew what it was. I knew that it was a bill that said that life, well, we know life begins at conception, but the bill states that life, if they hear a heartbeat, you cannot abort the baby. Well, I'm a pro-life pregnancy center director, and now I'm running for lieutenant governor. And the Speaker of the House looked over, there were 68 people in the caucus. Caucus is all the Republicans out of 99. We had a super majority. Never got a blasted thing done. I'll just throw that in. We had override power, and we never got anything done. But he did look over at me 18 days in, and he said, the heartbeat bill is back. And I thought, what's he looking at me for? And he said, Candice, you're the only pregnancy center director in the nation that serves in a legislature. And so we need to move this bill. Well, I didn't even know where the bathrooms were. I just got there. But I began to work on the bill alongside Janet and my colleague Ron Hood, who is the most excellent, principled, spirit-filled legislator I ever served alongside. And we began to really fight that battle, and I served under two governors, Kasich and DeWine. We couldn't move the bill during the Kasich administration. You have to start all over again every 2 years. We introduced it again. We got to the end. I made the best speech I could, the floor speech. Not one single woman on the Republican side of the aisle would make a speech, only me. I called every one of my women colleagues. None of them would speak, only me. We got to the Senate, and we were one vote short. And I won't mention any names, Bill Beagle. But we were one vote short. I'll never forget that. And I thought, now we've got to start all over again. And when we got there the third time that we introduced it, as we walked into the State House, see, I'm a pregnancy center director, so I understand warfare. We were coming out of the elevator, and my colleagues are good men, courageous men, but they're not used to the war that we're in, because, see, the Apostle Paul said, we're not fighting against flesh and blood. This is against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So when we got off the elevator, we could hear the screaming from the House chambers, just outside the House chambers. I was so ready for that, but my colleagues were not, and they were afraid. And they said to me, you go ahead and go on out. So I went out, and the entire state patrol was on both sides of the aisle. It's a black and white parquet floor. If you've ever been there, you've seen it. And the speaker had instructed me, don't take anything from anybody, don't touch anybody, don't let anybody touch you. The enemy was all around us, just like they're around this event. Because 1,000,000 years ago, right now, God knew that you would be here for this reason, for this purpose, at this time in history. This is not an accident that you're here. I walked toward my husband, had a camera at the end, right next to the House chamber doors. And they began to spit on us. By this time, I had had so many death threats on my life. And once somebody sent me the names of all my family members, where they lived, where they worked, even my grandchildren. Somebody sent me a book on how to commit suicide. I had to have a sheriff's deputy park in my driveway. I couldn't leave my house for weeks. But I was so determined to save the lives of the innocent unborn, understanding that there is still a baby aborted in this country every 19 seconds, 4,000 a day. That I knew that this cause, because you judge a nation by how they treat their children, that we had to stand for this cause. Because I know the Lord, and it's going to take the power of God to deliver our nation right now from what we're living under. Actually, it's going to take the power of the Holy Ghost. And I walked toward my husband. He was taking pictures. And they were so loud. They were screaming at us so loud. And they didn't stop for hours, hundreds and hundreds of the pro-aborts. And as I was walking toward the door, I thought about how fearful that I used to be. And I thought to myself, I love this. I was made for this. And when we got inside, I've only got 3 minutes. I promised I'd stop at 4:30. When we got inside, I made the floor speech the best I could do. Again, no woman would speak, only me. And in the gallery were the pastors, and the church was on this side. And I knew they were counting on me. And over here were all the pro aborts. And so there's two sets of doors, double doors. They closed the double doors, and it sounded like demons dying. It was so loud. I felt so sorry for the state patrol, but it sounded like locusts. That's what it sounded like to me, was locusts. I made my speech. When you vote at the House, you push a green button. There's a red button, a green button. We went through hours and hours of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And I was so used to it, but my pastor friends were shocked. But when the bill passed, and I pushed the button, Speaker Householder, he was ready, he knew. As soon as we voted, we passed it, barely passed it. The left went crazy. They started dropping sheets down that had vile sayings on them. I wish I would have taken pictures. And they're not even supposed to have that stuff at the State House. But you know what? One of the signs said, "This is not the church." And I looked up at that and thought, oh no, this is the church, because I'm here. So here's what we need to know. Satan will not have America. He'll not have America. Israel may have chosen God, but God may have chosen Israel, but America chose God. And we've got a time right now where we're living in a time where we're on a collision course with God himself. The only thing standing between our nation and utter disaster is the church. And we need to stand strong, just like I stood for the babies, just like I stood for the unborn. And now I'm standing telling you, when I'm elected to lieutenant governor and Ron Hood, a spirit-filled man, is made governor of this state, the first thing he's going to do is sign an executive order overturning all the illegal executive orders that Mike DeWine put into place. No mandatory vaccinations, no mandatory face masking, no more lockdowns, no more shutdowns. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, that's Candice.